Bro, Rostermania is crazy. Can we get some explosions? Shabang! 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 Let's go! Yo, YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy, SalvationsElite. We are back with a review, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that little intro there. I was just trying something new. We got some new editing stuff, so I'm working through it, just having some fun. It's Rostermania. It's CWL Seattle. It's time to talk about what's all happened this last week or so, predict what's going to happen in the future, and we'll see what we can talk about. It's going to be a fun video. I'm going to try to keep it fairly short and concise, you know, to the point. Don't want to burn your guys' time, but let's get right into it. So obviously there's been a lot of changes this last week or so with the Call of Duty scene, with teams and players and everyone changing teams, whatever. Obviously it's Rostermania. And so I just want to talk about some of the biggest teams right off the bat and who's benefited the most from Rostermania. And then we're going to talk about some of the more specific changes within the teams. All right, so two of the teams that benefited the most from Rostermania were LG and OpTic, because they didn't make changes. FaZe probably is up on that list too, but I think specifically LG and OpTic, this is the type of things they needed for a lot of other teams to switch up so they can just focus on their craft and really fine-tune what they're doing. But we'll talk about them a little bit later when it comes to Seattle. I think the best change, what I think a lot of people have been talking about already, is the Rise change with Slasher joining, Methods leaving. Slasher's been a fantastic player these last few weeks, dominating at events with Envy, and I think he's going to be awesome, and he's going to fit in really well with Rise and what they're trying to do. It's going to be a sick roster, and I mean, again, we'll talk about that more when we're talking about Seattle, but that's a great change off the bat, and they're going to be in pretty good shape moving forward. We've really just got a bunch of really strange changes this time with really interesting rosters that I don't think a lot of people really expected. So like say with Envy, we now have Classic, Hook, Decimate, and Chino on that roster, which is extremely interesting. It wasn't really what anybody expected going forward, and with a pretty young roster now with those guys, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. There are a lot of really more passive, quiet, low-key, chill guys, so I think that could help out Hook a lot. Hopefully they can gel together well, overcome their issues as a team collectively with a lot of like consensus, talking together, coming together as a squad. So I think that's going to help out the young guys a lot. It's hard to predict what they're going to do in the future. I don't really see them as a top 6 team, maybe, you know, 8 to 10-ish, 12, right? Probably right in there. Again, we're going to reiterate like tiers and favorites going into CWL Seattle, but that's kind of where I see them standing right now. So EU also made a change, giving the boot to Silly and bringing in Felo. A lot of people were really surprised by this one because Silly had been playing better recently, and a lot of people thought that maybe Pristini was the problem. I know a lot of pros said that Pristini plays way too fast and that he doesn't have enough patience in the game to, you know, make the smart plays, and he's been hurting EU in a lot of situations. But apparently EU doesn't think so. So Silly's gone, bringing in Felo. A lot of people haven't seen enough of Felo. I definitely haven't seen enough of Felo to have a good opinion about him. But some of the rumors around the pro scene is that he's a pretty strong player, but he has a lot of inconsistencies in his game, which could be a big problem for EU because that's been an overarching problem for EU throughout the whole year. I don't have huge expectations for EU moving forward. They're probably going to be a fringe 6 to 8 team, but nothing too much better than that probably. One of the most interesting rosters for me is EG's roster now, with Silly, Assault, Aches, and Apathy. They keep 2 of the guys from EG originally with Apathy and Aches, and then they bring in Assault and Silly from Echo Fox and EU. So I like the roster. I think they could play fairly well together. There's all this kind of like early on hype about them because they just beat FaZe like 280 like 20 something in a hardpoint on Gibraltar. You know, that's only one online match or whatever. I don't know. That they could be a top 6 to 8 team. They could maybe make a run into the top 4 at some point in these last few events. But right now, I think going into Seattle, you have to temper expectations a little bit. And, you know, we'll talk about them a little bit more in the future. So again, another really interesting roster is Complexity's roster with Censor, Dashy, Blast, and Ricky. So what's actually interesting about this one is that they're actually going to be a LAN League team. They're going to be in Season 2. Censor's back in the Season 2. He found his way onto a team that could make that happen. Originally, Nameless thought he was going to join onto Complexity instead of Censor, but apparently Complexity wanted to pick up Censor probably because of the branding and what he brings to the table. I think they could make a little bit of noise, but nothing too crazy. I mean, there's not huge expectations for him, probably top 12-ish, but nothing too much better than that. They're definitely a team I'm going to want to watch more of, but right now it's tough to say what they're going to do. Again, top 12 is probably the best they can expect. So now that we finally got over all these roster changes, let's talk about Seattle. So in my mind, there's about 3 or 4 tiers of teams, probably about 3 tiers of teams that really have any type of chance at Seattle. So the top tier, the 4 in my mind contenders, are OpTic, FaZe, LG, and Rise. Those 4 teams have really been proven throughout the year. They have pretty consistent rosters. Of course, Rise just made one change, but they definitely got better from that change. They've been performing well as of late, And obviously we've seen OpTic, FaZe, LG, they've all been extremely successful in Season 1. It's only reasonable to expect that they're going to be successful at Seattle. Honestly, I'd be extremely surprised if one of those 4 teams isn't who wins the tournament. If I had to put my money on it, I think OpTic's going to win the tournament. I think this is their time. This is their tournament to win. They've been so close these last few events. They got that fire in them for this one. And it only makes sense that they come out on top here at Seattle. So the second tier of teams is probably EG, NV, TK, Splice, and EU. So there's 5 teams in tier 2. Any of those teams could finish top 6. Really, you know, right around there in the semifinals, winner finals, losers finals. Maybe one of these teams slips into the top 4. I do kind of like that NV roster. I want to see what they can do. Same with EG. It's really just too hard to tell at this point. Again, the best case scenario for these guys is probably top 6. A few teams that are kind of like in that tier 3, maybe they get real hot and slip into that top, you know, 3 or 4 would be Red Reserve, Echo Fox, and Complexity. The expectations are really tempered for these teams. They don't have too much pressure heading into the events. But at the end of the day, they have talent, and we know where they could make a run to like the losers finals or something like that. So my team to watch in this event, you know, a little bit of a sleeper is the NV roster. If they're grinding it out this week and really practicing a lot before Seattle, I could see them coming in with a pretty good rhythm, and with the young talent and a lot of potential they have, you know, you never know what they could do. Get hot, get on a run, and make something happen at Seattle. So OpTic's my favorite. I think LG would be right behind them, and then FaZe. And then NV is my team to watch. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. Share the video if you guys really enjoy it. I really appreciate it. I love seeing all your comments down below and all the stuff on social media and everything. So, but as always, guys, I'm your boy, SalvationsElite, and we'll see you next time. And then 2 kind of watching dockside. They have 1 dock stairs. They have 1 at the side door of beer, watching that dock flank. And so they do a fantastic job of being extremely patient right off the bat. Obviously, they must know some of OpTic's tendencies, and they were able to call that push.